So thank you everyone for joining this Jdmba info session. My name is Timur Pakai. I am the director of the Jdmba program and the Rubin Mark Initiative at Columbia Law School. I'm pleased to be joined by Amanda Nicholas, who's the associate director of admissions at Columbia Business School. And we are also delighted to be joined by Ray Liu, who is a current Jdmba student in his second year residing at the business school. So he is going to be speaking a little bit about his perspective in a bit. But we are gonna, so this is a high-level overview of the Jdmba program with particular focus on the three-year accelerated program. We will be covering program benefits as well as the application process, career options, and we will hold a Q&A session towards the end of this info session. So please feel free to use the chat box, type in your questions. We will get to them towards the end of this presentation. We'll also be sharing our contact information if you have any additional questions following this info session. So let's jump in. So this, so for the three-year Jdmba program, applicants, they apply through one single joint application through the Columbia Business School's application portal. And the applications are reviewed by both the Columbia Law School and Columbia Business School admissions committees. So students can, or applicants can apply for the three-year program and be jointly admitted and would start the program at the law school as a 1L student. Current Columbia Law School 1L students can also apply to this program during their 1L year and be admitted to the three-year program or the four-year program. If any of you are interested in the four-year program, you would need to apply separately to each school. Next slide, please. So program benefits. So why would you do a Jdmba, a three-year Jdmba? Well, very simple. I think one big reason is you get both degrees in 3 years' time with an accelerated format, as opposed to 5 years. You also have accessibility to both schools in terms of career services, faculty, your peers, as well as research centers that you can get involved in. As a 1L student, you can be involved in a number of different law school student organizations. In your second year at the business school, you can get involved with many student organizations at that school. You are also exposed to a very wide network of alumni who are in a number of sectors. Just to share a little bit, many of our alumni have gone into M&A, for instance, consulting, finance, tech, entrepreneurship fields, corporate law. And so you're exposed to the Jdmba alumni as well as alumni from each individual school. So we have a very robust alumni network. And we also organize a number of dinners where we invite back Jdmba alumni to speak and to network with our current students. During the program, students can decide to do a legal internship or be a summer associate after their 1L year, and then do something business oriented during their second summer. And last bullet, you enter the workforce much sooner than other dual degree holders. So as I mentioned, we're fortunate to have Ray Liu on this call here. Ray, if I can bring you into the loop here, so wondering if you could just touch upon some of these benefits and maybe talk a little bit about what you think about doing, or what you did your first summer and what you're thinking about doing your second summer.
Totally. Yeah, thanks for having me, Timur. So, the Columbia program was definitely, my top choice given the 3-year plan. A lot of other comparable schools end up being 4 years, or like require you to be on campus for a summer. At Columbia, so last summer, I did an internship in the legal space after completing my 1L year. This year, I'm in residence at the business school and plan on working a business-oriented job this upcoming summer. I'd say of my cohort, half the students end up pursuing law-related careers, and the other half end up pursuing more business-oriented careers. I would say most people still end up taking the bar. I think it ends up being very helpful, even if you're not explicitly pursuing a law degree. And the benefit of the program is that, you're able to lean into either side as much as you want. I have friends that are very dedicated to the law school, are in law review, participate in a variety of programs there, while also gaining, the elements of the business degree that they're interested in. And I also have friends, that you see the law curriculum as supplemental to, their pursuits, whether it be in, entrepreneurship, M&A, restructuring, nonprofits, social enterprise, and everything related. So, having 2 summers to be able to explore both your business and your law passions is really helpful. I also know people that are able to explore a little bit of both over the summers too, just given careful planning and structuring. So overall, I think it's a really flexible program that's allowed me and all my peers to explore all of our interests at Columbia so far.
Thank you
so
for
much.
sharing. I'm going to pass things over to Amanda.
Thank you. Thank you both. So if you are applying directly to the Jdmba 3-year program, so if you're not a current 1L student, it's a joint application that is completed through the business school's application portal. You also, if you are submitting Lsat scores, would need to complete the Columbia Law School supplemental form on LSAC. So just make sure you're aware of that if you are submitting Lsat scores, and we'll get into more of those application requirements a little bit later. One thing to note is that applications will not be reviewed until all components have been received. So what we mean by that is if you are getting your recommendations together and you've submitted your application, but we haven't received your letter of recommendations yet, we wait until we receive those letters of recommendation before reviewing applications. We also have 2 different deadlines. So we have an early decision deadline and a regular decision deadline. The differences between those 2 deadlines, in case you're not familiar with a round process between early decision and regular decision, is that early decision means that you know for a fact that Columbia is the place you want to do your JD MBA. And it's the #1 choice for you. And that's why you would apply early decision, because it means that you would be dedicated to matriculating at Columbia Law School and Columbia Business School. You would withdraw other apps from any other schools that you might have applied to, and you would decline any offers you have received from other schools. If you're applying regular decision, that deadline is February 15th. So that's not you're not dedicated to the same thing as early decision if you're applying regular decision. So that's the biggest differences between the early decision and regular decision. And do keep in mind that we don't start reviewing regular decision applications until closer to that February 15th deadline. If you are a 1L student currently and are interested in pursuing a JD MBA, as Timur mentioned earlier, you wouldn't apply through the joint application. You would apply directly to Columbia's current regular MBA application, and there is a place on the application where you can indicate that you are applying for that JD MBA dual degree program. If you are doing that, please just make sure that you let Timur know before you start applying so that there's awareness on both sides of who's going to be interested in that dual degree program. As I mentioned earlier, this is a joint application through the business school portal if you're interested in applying directly for the JD MBA. We accept either the Gmat or the GRE. Either of those tests are required. You don't have to take both. We don't prefer either test either. The general advice is to take the test that is best for you. The Lsat is optional. You're not required to submit an Lsat in order to apply for the JD MBA. But if you have taken the Lsat, you are required to submit that score. So please make sure if you have done the Lsat already that you complete that supplemental form in order to submit those scores to us. We do ask for 2 letters of recommendation. We strongly encourage that you're submitting 1 professional and 1 academic letter of recommendation. If you can't get your current supervisor for the professional recommendation, which is what we ask for, then you can explain that on the application. There's actually a place where you can check off and explain why you're not using your current direct supervisor. We completely understand that there's multiple situations why someone might not necessarily be able to talk to their current supervisor for that letter of recommendation. And if you're not able to provide both types, please just let us know why you're not able to do that in the optional essay. We'll also be looking at your resume to see, where you've been in your career so far. We'll be looking at your academic transcripts just to get a good idea of your performance academically in your previous degrees, whether it was undergrad or if you did a master's already after completing undergrad, we could look at that as well. There is 1 essay required, that is, why is the program a good fit for you? And we'll also ask you about what are your career goals post Jd Mba. We do also have an interview that's part of that is to get a better sense of who you are as a person. We don't just want to be looking at who you are professionally and academically. We want to get a good idea of who you are personally. We have a holistic application process here, so we want to make sure we're seeing all facets of you, and that's part of what the interview is for. So just keep in mind that those are by invitation only. And most importantly, here are our application deadlines. As I mentioned earlier, the early decision deadline is November 15th. Regular decision is February 15th. Regardless of when you are applying, the Financial Aid Office recommends that any forms you need in order to start obtaining financial aid, that you also submit those by February 15th, regardless of whether you've received a decision or not. So those are things like the FAFSA and the GRE GMAT administration dates. Those are just the last test dates before you submit your application. We know you might not receive your official test scores by the time you submit your application if you're applying November 15th and took a test on November 1st, but you can submit your unofficial scores and submit your official scores to us later. Also noted here for your reference are the deposits. If you're applying early decision, you will hear by the end of December what your final decision is, and the deposit will be due January 15th of next year. Regular decision, it's a similar timeline if you're applying regular decisions. So you'll hear your final decision no later than April 30th, and then the deposit will be due May 1st of next year. I'm turning it back over to Timur.
Yes. So additional items. If you apply to the program and you're not admitted, there is the option to apply again during the next cycle. And it's also possible to be admitted to one school and not the other. We've had students that have asked, for, I guess, to reapply to maybe the one school they didn't get in, and they can do that. If they commit to, let's say they were admitted to the MBA only, they can apply again to the law school during their first year of the MBA. 1L students at Columbia Law School can apply to the business school for program consideration. Again, as we said earlier, 1Ls would need to fill out the application, the MBA application on the Columbia Business School site. And students in first year business school, as well as 1Ls and 2Ls, can consider the 4-year Jd Mba. Next slide. So we're going to just give you kind of a quick overview of what to expect in terms of coursework and curriculum during each year of the Jd Mba. So your first year, you start off in residence at the law school, and you're taking foundation courses with other 1Ls. And this is just a list of the foundation courses that we offer. Ray, if I could bring you back in to the circle here. I was wondering if you could just maybe give kind of a quick snapshot of your first year experience at the law school and the types of courses you took.
Yeah, definitely. So first year in the 3-year program, at least, you complete the exact same foundation curriculum as all the other 1Ls in your class, which is actually really nice. You get to build your sort of cohort with everyone around you. you're in class with the same people, every day. As you might know, at Columbia Law, everyone's split into, I think, 4 different sections, and you take all your classes besides your elective and certain smaller classes with that entire section. So you'll have a combination of all these classes between your fall and your spring semester. So for example, I had civil procedure, contracts, torts, and LPW legal practice workshop 1 in fall, and then I had the rest in the spring. So for your 1L electives, you're able to choose from a variety of classes, including corporations. I took a class called The Law of the Political Process, which is on election law, and the different intricacies involved there. So, the foundation curriculum is, the exact same that you would have with the first year law students. And then in business school, similarly, you'll also be in a similar core curriculum. Yeah.
Thank you, Ray. And just to add, when you start at the law school, you go through orientation with all other 1L JD students. And when you enter this program, you work with kind of a Jdmba administration that's here to help you navigate both the law school and the business school academic requirements. So in my role, I work with all Jdmba students, helping them figure out how to satisfy requirements, how to make sure they're on track to graduate on time. So you will have a dedicated staff that will work with you. Next slide, please. So year 2, you're at the business school, and you go through orientation prior to the start of the fall semester with other students that are entering the MBA. And this is just a list of the required courses that you take during year 2 of the program. So during your first semester, you are taking all core classes. In your second semester, you need to take at least 12 or more credits of business school electives. There is usually room to have to take 1 law school elective during your second term. Ray, I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about your experience so far. I know you've been at the business school for a few weeks, but anything you can share?
Yeah, happy to. So, like Timur explained, it's a similar set of core curriculum at the business school. I think one difference I'd note is that the business school, if you have prior background in a lot of these classes, you're able to take the exemption exams and pass out of those. And then that enables you to either take other electives at the business school or the law school, planning your schedule with Timur and all the related advisors as well. And like was referenced, you're able to take, whether it's a law class or a business class or a cross-listed class, there's definitely flexibility and room to take both. But yeah, similar setup to the core curriculum at the law school as well.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank you so much for that, Ray. And one thing I'd like to add to that is, yes, these are your foundational business school curriculum that you see here on the screen. One thing to note is that operations management is actually taken in the second semester, and the rest of these core courses are taken in the first semester when you're at CBS. So that's just one thing to keep in mind when you're planning out for the second semester, is that you'll have 1 more core course, but the rest can be all electives. The other thing, and I'd be curious about your experience with this as well, Ray, is that when you're at the business school, you're put into a cluster, and your cluster is the same people you will take all your core courses with. So you're not just going to potentially be with all finance people or all consulting people. The Office of Student Affairs actually makes sure that you're with a good diverse group of people. And obviously any JD MBA students are adding to the diversity of the classroom there because of your unique experience. So it's a great environment where you're meeting a lot of people, you're with the cluster all through these core courses, and you're also put in a learning team. So you actually have a built-in study group to take all of these courses with and work on group projects and cases and all those things. I don't know if Ray wanted to add anything else to that as well.
Yeah, definitely. So similar, like Amanda explaining at the business school, I think we have all the way through cluster I don't know how many letters that is, but a lot of clusters. And they're slightly smaller than the ones at the law school. So you get to know everybody, on a different level. You get put into a 5 to 6 person learning team. You do a lot of your group projects with. I believe all the Jdmbas this year are in the same cluster, which enables us to get to know each other and like spend more time together at the law school, because a lot of people apply during their first year. And for a variety of reasons, not all the Jdmbas are in the same law school section, but we are all in the same business school cluster. So it's been a good chance to, be a cohesive unit in that way and take all these classes together. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Mm-hmm.
Your next year, year 3, you would be back in residence at the law school. And again, you can continue to take a combination of law school and business school courses. These would all be electives, and you would be completing any remaining JD degree requirements during this time. So just keeping in mind of making sure you're keeping in balance with getting all the requirements done for both sides. That's one of the main things a lot of students will do in this 3rd year. And here we have listed out all of the JD academic requirements and the MBA academic requirements. Touching on the MBA side of things, just keep in mind you have to complete 45 business credits. 18 of those are the core, 27 are elective courses. And as Ray alluded to before, you can test out and gain an exemption to certain business school core courses. If, for example, if you've worked in finance for a number of years already and you don't feel like you need to take a finance course, you can certainly test out of that. It doesn't mean that you're going to have to take fewer credits overall in the program. It just opens up those credits for electives. So if you're testing out of a course that's cross-listed between both the law school and the business school, just make sure you're replacing that with a cross-listed elective. That's just one requirement to keep in mind. There's a wide range of electives that you'll see on the next slide in terms of things that are cross-listed and what you can take as a JD MBA student. And Timur, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to touch on in terms of the JD requirements before we move on.
Sure. Yeah. Just to add, there are a number of different policies at both schools. My role is to help our Jdmba students get oriented with policies at both schools and how to satisfy requirements. I would just add that most Jdmbas do fulfill their major writing and minor writing requirements during their 3rd year, as well as professional responsibility and legislation and regulations. Students also work with the Office of Social Justice Initiatives to get placed into a pro bono opportunity, and they must fulfill that before the March of their final year of the program. Okay, great. So there are a number of courses you can take during the program that are considered cross-listed, meaning that a course double counts. So for instance, this is just a list of law school courses that are cross-listed as the business school. As you can see here, there is a fairly wide variety of courses to select from. And some of the core, there are a few core requirements at the business school that are cross-listed at the law school, and maybe we can get to the list in the next slide. So here are the list of business school courses cross-listed at the law school. So I think part of the core classes at Columbia Business School include accounting on the top left, which many business school students take during their first semester, as well as corporate finance. Yes, we can go to the next slide, please. And these are courses that are offered at both schools that you can take during your 2nd and 3rd year of the program. Okay, so career options. I would say maybe we could just stay on this slide. During the program, in your first year at law school, you have access to the Office of Career Services at the law school. Once you get settled in during your first semester, there is a number of programming events that you must attend. And our Office of Career Services team really dedicated to helping you, with resume writing, interviewing, but also trying to figure out what are you going to do during your first summer. And then you do not have access to Columbia Business School career resources until your second year, after you go through orientation at the business school. But once you are enrolled in your second year at the business school, you then have access to both career centers. Ray, if I can just ask you, maybe just if you can tell everyone what your experience has been like during your first year at the law school.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say in the first year to 3-year program, a majority, if not all of the participants do an internship in the legal space. So I was interested in working a public interest job over the summer. So I worked pretty closely with SJI at the law school. I went through all the law school recruiting channels. And, I have peers in the program that were interested in law firms and were able to secure that for the past summer as well. There are a couple of students that knew that they wanted to pursue a business path from the start and did their own search path outside of the business and law schools to find jobs that way. So the degree of flexibility there is pretty high. Going into the second year, I think some students have already accepted jobs for next summer for another law firm. Those are students that are certain that they're going to spend their career in the legal space. There are other students like myself who are interested in doing a business internship this coming summer. So there are resources at the business school, as well as support from the law school for in any capacity that your job search relates back to the legal field. So pretty wide a range of options for you to pursue from either school.
Thank you, Ray. And I do see a question in the Q&A just around careers from Christopher. How do JD MBAs typically start their careers outside of law firms? So just looking at our graduates from this program over the last 10 years, there is a pretty even split between those that could pursue legal careers versus business careers. I'd say kind of in the realm of business, many have gone on to consulting, investment banking, dealing with M&A, as well as real estate, and many in finance, since we sit in the capital of the financial world here in New York. All right, so Amanda, should we go to the next slide?
Yeah, let's open it up to questions. I've already been answering a few people in the Q&A box. And so I want to give Timur a little bit of a break since he has been talking the most recently. So he's already spoken to the career side of things. I guess one thing, Ray, a question that I think you could help with is, can you talk a little bit more about what the community is like for Jdmba students, or even like how your experience was like at the law school in the first year in terms of community?
Yeah, definitely. So in your first year of law school, you're fully integrated into Columbia Law. I think you're actually technically deferred at the business school. I think that's really good timing because you're able to graduate on time with your law school cohort, as well as on time with the business school cohort that you joined during your second year. So in the first year, the community is, very strongly integrated into Columbia Law, and then currently, very strongly integrated into Columbia Business School. And then obviously, a lot of different people, a lot of different places, but, you're able to find, the pockets of people that are interested in the same things, as well as, being able to hang out with your Jdmba cohort as well.
Thank you. One quick question that I can help answer is, will this recording be sent out afterwards? We are planning on posting the recording closer to the early decision deadline on the website. So please look out for that if you are interested in reviewing this recording later on. Another question, are there majors or concentrations at either school? So from the business school side, there actually are no majors or concentrations at Columbia Business School. The idea behind that is to actually encourage students to take the courses that most interest them without focusing on, oh my gosh, I have to really complete this one course that I don't really want to take just to get a specialization or just to get a concentration. The idea is that you should take the courses that most interest you. However, if you are interested in diving deep into something like healthcare or finance, there are what we call areas of focus. Again, these aren't like official things you need to declare like a major or concentration, but they are a list of courses essentially that you can look at and get a good idea of what courses you should take to do that deep dive if you're interested in it. And into more, I don't know if you want to talk more on the law school side about what it looks like over there in terms of if there's majors or concentrations.
No, there are no major or concentrations at the law school. Again, you do have you do have the flexibility of being focused in in taking courses in a certain area. Let's say negotiations, M&A. Again, kind of the intersection of business and law through the law school curriculum. I would also mention there was actually a question about the Richmond Center. Just to tie this in, the Richmond Center is a Center for Business Law and Public Policy. They do, they actually support the Jdmba cohort. They do a lot of programming, networking events, dinners, icebreakers for the Jdmba cohort. But there are a number of different lectures and events where they bring in amazing guest speakers to talk about topics related to intersection of law and business. So there's no concentration or specialization at the law school, but you have the flexibility of taking more corporate law courses with intersection of business and law.
Thank you. Another question around course exemption. There's a question around, can courses be waived if you've already completed them at another school? Unfortunately, no, we don't take transfer credits, but you can test out. So if you have taken a specific course at a different school, you can still test out of that requirement, so you're not taking it twice, essentially, and opening that up to more electives. Is there a minimum number of full-time years of work experience that are required to apply for the 3-year Jdmba program? So there isn't a minimum, though we do recommend having around 6 months generally, just so that way you have some professional work experience, especially for the MBA side of things. But there really isn't a minimum requirement, just that strong recommendation to have at least 6 months. There also isn't a maximum requirement. So if you were curious on that side of things as well, we do not have a maximum or a minimum when it comes to full-time work experience. Again, just that strong suggestion of having at least 6 months before you apply. All right. I think maybe Ray, you can help with this question. It is, what makes Columbia's Jdmba program unique when compared to other schools, differences or similarities? I guess to you, why did you decide to pursue your Jdmba with Columbia?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was already in New York beforehand. I wanted to stay in New York. That was a priority for me. I have some work experience prior. I'd worked for a few years in financial services. And so, the condensed program was important to me in terms of how long I wanted to be in school. And then another big factor for me was the flexibility for both my summer internships. I wanted the opportunity to both experience the business and the legal side for the space I'm interested in working in. So Columbia was pretty unique in the sense that a lot of other programs may either ask that you spend a summer or complete it in 4 years, and combined with being able to stay in New York with where my friends and communities are. I think that was critical to me.
Thank you. Another question, it's really quick that I want to help answer. The application is unique in that there is an optional personal photo. Are there any requirements or examples? The personal photo is more of a way for us to put a face to your application. Again, we're a holistic application process, and part of that is getting a sense of who you are. And it's kind of hard to do that and remember sometimes that there is a person behind this application who spent a ton of time putting in the work for this application when we can't really put a face to the name. So it's really just more for us to get a good sense of who you are and just get to see your beautiful smiling face while we're looking at your application, and remember that there is a person behind this and really get that personal touch. There is no requirement. It can be a fun photo. It doesn't have to be a professional photo or anything like that.
Now, Amanda, I'll take a couple of questions here.
Thank you.
I see there's a question about how many students are there in the Jdmba cohort. It is a very small cohort, and this is a very is a highly selective program. I can't really comment on numbers, but I can say it's a very tight-knit, cohesive community. There is also a question I saw about internships. Is it difficult for all students to place in internships? Our Office of Career Services at both schools work very closely with the student, with our Jdmba students from the beginning of the fall semester. So there's ample time to apply and to work with Office to get placed.
Thank you. Let's see. And just another question that we kind of answered earlier, but just wanted to help address. Can GRE or Gmat scores be the sole basis of evaluation, even if you have a valid Lsat score? As I mentioned earlier, if you have taken the Lsat, it is required that you submit that to us. So the only required scores are the GRE or the Gmat, but if you have taken an Lsat, we just want to see that as well. So please make sure you submit that too. All right. Are early decision applicants more favorable for admission than regular decision applicants? Not necessarily. Really, when you decide when you want to apply, it's really based on, again, that big difference between early decision and regular decision. Early decision being Columbia's your #1 choice. You want to be here no matter what. And, knowing that you are dedicated to matriculating at Columbia and would rescind other applications or decline other offers. So it's up to you what makes the most sense for your application process and what you want to do in terms of, is Columbia your #1 choice? Great. We'd love to see your early decision application. Do you want to have options and apply to other schools? Then we understand that. We understand strategically you might want to have that option. So it's okay to still apply regular decision if that's what you want. There isn't really a favorable option there. Let's see. Another question around an application: is there any disadvantage to reapplying at either Columbia Law School or Columbia Business School? No, there isn't a disadvantage to reapplying. We actually have a reapplication webinar on the CBS side of things, in case you're ever curious about what that process looks like and what the general advice is. Generally, if you are reapplying, that's certainly not a bad thing. It helps us get a better sense of your dedication to getting a higher degree and your dedication to potentially getting that at Columbia. And, if you decide you do want to reapply, if you are denied in a previous year, we just want to see your growth. And again, we have a reapplication webinar, so I won't go over the full breadth of that here, but definitely check that out if you are a reapplicant and that's something you are considering.
I'll take a question. There was a question. I lost it. Is there a preference for a certain major in undergraduate to be considered for this program? There is no preference. Our students come from both liberal arts backgrounds, as well as having majored in business. who apply to this program. I would also say there was a question about work experience. I think, there are most of our students or most applicants have 2 to 5 years of work experience. If you haven't taken any business courses as an undergraduate, that's not an issue. I think it's good to have some work experience prior to applying.
All right, in terms, again, another application question, does Columbia require you to report your first GRE or Gmat or your second score if it is higher? Definitely, you can report all of your scores for GRE or Gmat, and we'll certainly take into consideration if your highest score. So if you have more than one GRE or Gmat score, don't worry, we're happy to take a look at all of them. Here's a question, I think, Ray, that you could probably help with. What is a typical semester schedule like? So what is the day-to-day like? And what should those with home responsibilities, like young children, be aware of in terms of the time commitment for the program?
Yeah, it's a good question. Law school first year is probably exactly what you'd expect it to be. You're getting the baseline for becoming an attorney. You take a lot of law classes. I would say that there are definitely students that I can think of that have pretty substantial home obligations, family, partners, long commutes. I would say at business school, that's probably more common. There are even more students in that capacity, just because I think the average or median ages are higher. So definitely as rigorous as you might expect a joint degree at a top academic institution would be, but definitely manageable across all fronts.
Thank you. Timur, I think you could probably help with this question. Are there any opportunities or resources for those hoping to pursue a degree with a focus in the public sector, or any other opportunities for public sector career help on the JD side? I can certainly talk about the CBS side as well.
Yes, and I need your help, Ray. Yes, there's definitely students can pursue careers in public sector, public interest law. I saw that there was also a question about Jdmba students. Do they go into public interest or social entrepreneurship careers? I don't know, Ray, if you could maybe expand a little bit there. I know that that's your interest.
Definitely, yeah. So I came to Columbia to work in social enterprise, nonprofits, impact investing, and the like. I actually did work in the public sector last summer. I did economic development for the city of New York on the legal side. I have plenty of friends and peers at the law school interested in clerking and working in the public sector as well. There's a pretty robust office of judicial clerkships at the law school that helps if you're interested in being a judge. There's definitely a pretty deep public interest community here that I'm a part of as well. And you'll be able to find those resources wherever you're looking for them. So being a dual degree does not limit that in any way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. I also see that there was a question about cross-listed courses. Is it possible for the list of cross-listed courses to expand? The answer is yes. Jdmba students can petition for courses to be cross-listed during the term they're taking that particular course, if it's not already on the list. So there is a process for that, and I work very closely with the students on that.
Thank you. One question here is, do you think use of on-campus housing is advantageous or common? Generally for grad students, it actually is not very common from what I've heard from our CBS students, especially because on-campus housing is pretty competitive they tend to give preference to international students. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. But a lot of students tend to live off campus, often with other students in the program. So great way to meet other people in the program is to maybe become roommates with them. And a lot of people will tend to live in the Upper West Side area and generally along the one line in New York City. From what I've heard, first year students tend to live closer to campus. And then in the second year, people tend to spread out a little bit more and explore different neighborhoods in the city. And that's just kind of up to personal preference. But a lot of people kind of want that full New York experience, including getting their own apartment and maybe living with roommates and exploring the city. All right. Let's see.
Maybe time for one more question?
Yes, I think so. I got a couple of questions about applying to both the Jdmba early decision and MBA or JD early decision. If you are interested in applying to the Jdmba early decision, then just submit the one application is what I would say there. Submitting multiple applications isn't necessarily going to, boost your ability to get into specific programs. Really, think about why you want a Jdmba versus why you want an MBA or why you want a JD and really what's most important to you, and make your decision to apply to which program is most important to you based on that. If you decide later on that you really would only prefer to be in one program, certainly let us know. But if you're already thinking that you want both the Jdmba, you want both a JD and an MBA, we highly encourage you to apply to the joint application. And that is all we have time for. That was our last question. We thank you again so much for being here. Again, thank you so much, Ray, for taking the time to be here with us and answer from your experience what the program is like. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you for joining.